Hello, everybody. My name is Colton from Colton Iverson Writing, Colton Iverson 1 on Twitter, and Write Authority on Instagram. And I'm here today with a fantastic guest, Nicolas Lemieux. Could you give yourself an introduction, please?
Hi, yes, my name is Nicolas Lemieux in French, and Nicolas Lemieux sounds perfect to me too. Um, so I'm a French Canadian. I live in Montreal. I've been there for about 20, 26 years or so, originally from Quebec City. Also spent a while in Ontario. Um, so my chosen genre is science fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I love only science fiction, I love many genres, but it's the one I used to read the most as a teenager, and it's kind of my first love. So when I started writing, I thought, well, let's start with my first love, of course, science fiction. And the book I'm writing right now, well, it's my first one. I
Oh,
haven't published yet an unpublished author, working on my stuff and loving it. It's called Seven Drifts,
mhm.
and it involves a city starship that's been drifting in the middle of nowhere for about 2 centuries. And it has a huge population, a mayor, and a lot of culture and fine dining and, shows. It's the best life.
Yeah.
And people in there believe that there's no other way to live because the main drive was damaged
Mm.
2 centuries ago, and they make the best of it. But dot dot dot.
Uh,
so so yeah,
that's that sounds
in a
really cool.
nutshell.
I mean, it sounds like the most high concept science fiction you can go. I think it's really cool
Ah,
that that you've built this whole culture around it. And I read Cradle, and at first I was like, okay, this is interesting. It's like a woman and she's gardening and taking care of a house. And then I was like, there's drones. And then there's like this strange cradle, and then it gets to the towards the end. I won't spoil anything, but it just like, oh, this is science fiction. So I'm like, it's to anybody out there, it's a very quick story, and it'll there's a bit of a twist and some nice world building in there. So I'd definitely say check it out. And so, I mean, based on this awesome book, this short story, you're published because you've published your short story, so you're a published author.
okay, nice.
But I mean, hey,
That's right.
take it where you can get it. So my first question is, what inspires your stories as a science fiction author?
That's a cool question. Um, yeah, and there's many answers, but I would say it's
Oh,
playfulness. I
okay.
used to play as a child with my bestie. We used to invent, worlds and adventures, and we were, riding on the back of whales and fighting pirates, and then traveling to outer space and coming up with weird planets. One planet was made of sand, and its core was a huge diamond.
Oh,
So yeah, I like to keep this sense of playfulness, playing, and that's what I'd like to imbue especially my protagonist, with. I think it's her main gift, her
mhm.
playfulness, even though she doesn't know it because she's not serious. So
Yeah.
she sees herself kind of as a loser in the beginning. So what inspires me? Playfulness, invention, and the sense of virtual reality.
Oh,
Because
okay.
from reading, uh, from always, I used to read a lot in high school, for example, and bury myself in the library,
Yeah.
far from the madding crowd and the bullies and so on. And reading was like immersing myself and losing myself totally into a different world, different life,
Yeah.
enjoying it, uh, losing the sense of time that passes. And at some point in my around my 30s, I realized that I could try to do it myself,
Yeah.
and I could also reunite my passions, my life passions. I had a passion for physics, sciences, and physics. I had a passion for music. I studied music. I used to be a classical singer for a while there,
Okay.
and they felt like kind of disconnected. And I realized at some point that writing could unite them all. You know, you can write about music, about outer space, about physics, about geology and geography and everything,
Yeah.
everything. So
Wow. That's amazing. Well, I mean, it is called most science fiction stories that are like wide expanding, universe expanding are called space operas. So,
yeah,
being able to mix the
yeah,
science and the music, I'd say that it works perfectly. So, I think you're on the right track of putting them together.
that's
Yeah. And then that actually
yeah.
leads
I hope so. Yeah.
pretty well into my next question is what do you think is needed for a good science fiction story?
Oh, what a great question. What is needed? Um, I think you need a lot of, well, to write it, you need a lot of passion, that's for sure.
Hmm.
Curiosity. You need to to have the want, the desire to look into everything, you know, all the sciences, the arts, the culture, the politics, all the aspects of life
Yeah.
can be represented. I'm not saying they have to, they all have to be, but they can be there. And also a sense of epicness, I
Hmm.
think. Um, Many science fiction stories, not all of them, but especially space opera, involve, well, action, of course, but epicness in the sense that they often span a long period of time,
Yeah.
many generations, sometimes, or centuries, millennia.
Yeah.
You need to build a world, a universe. It doesn't have to be that much different from our own, but it's going to be different if it's set in the future. You need to connect the technology that you're going to use uh, minimally or in a plausible way
Yep.
to
Yeah.
what we know of science right now. So
Hmm.
it needs to connect in some way.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be super detailed, but well, science fiction readers like to nerd over those things, and I sure do as well. Um, and yeah, and patience.
Yep. Yep. I think just as an author in general, you have to have a lot of patience to be able
Oh
to
yes,
finish your stories.
yeah,
That's I think like maybe one of the first things you have to learn.
absolutely. Yeah, 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 yeah. And even after you finish the first draft, you discover that, oh my gosh, I
Uh,
finished my first draft in 2017, and I've been working on editing and rewriting, and I'm smack in the middle of draft four.
oh.
And I'm not saying draft two and three were complete because I changed genres.
Mhm.
I started off with an action story.
Uh-huh.
And then I went to a thriller with a
Wow.
serial killer, and it was kind of interesting to
Okay.
explore. And then I realized when I got to the end of Act One, once again, that yeah, it wasn't really a thriller. It was really an action story, not act, but based on a rebellion. Because you have this power, this mayor, this administration
Mhm.
that is running things, and we have to challenge their philosophy, their view, their point of view, and what they're saying.
Yeah.
There's still this element of thriller and serial killer because we have murders, but they're not central, they're secondary now. So it's a
Yeah.
matter of structuring the story around the right genre, and
Yeah.
it's a big challenge, and it's super fun.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure just doing starting in 2017 and doing so many switches and now you're hopefully publishing in 2023. So I mean,
I hope so,
that's
yeah.
really fantastic. Or at least that's what your
Yeah,
website said. I don't know if
yeah,
that's
that's
still the
right.
plan, but um I guess like so reading your story, uh, I had my mind, and as I was thinking about it, my mind went to Ray Bradbury because
Oh,
Ray Bradbury does a really good job of taking like everyday life and it infuse in like these basic simple situations like gardening for example and infusing
yeah.
it with this sense of like oh something else is happening, oh we're getting on a spaceship, or oh there's more of a futuristic feel or a different feel to it. And that's really what I got from your story. Is he one of your inspirations, or is that just a coincidence?
I'd say it's both
Okay.
because I've enjoyed several stories by Ray
Yeah.
Bradbury, of course. Not all of them. There's hundreds.
There's
Um, but yeah, well, I like to oppose, very, I wouldn't say mundane, but familiar situations
yeah.
like gardening or, working in a botanical garden
Hmm.
or singing at the karaoke bar,
Yeah.
or things like that, or putting on a jazz show for a big festival, um, but making them part of a wider, futuristic story.
Yeah.
Things that seem very contrasted
Hmm.
please me because then it's a challenge to connect them,
Yeah.
and also I think it triggers creativity in my brain somehow.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I mean, I think having to connect those, two completely different things, that does take a lot of work and it does trigger that creativity. I mean, I think most people have experienced gardening before. I think most people have experienced the mundanity of having to be like, okay, do I need to take care of this plant, this plant, this plant? Do I need to get my chores done? But I don't think many people have experienced being caught on live television in a drifting spaceship. So I think you did a fantastic job of mixing those two things. And at the beginning, I was like, oh, this is just,
Thanks.
oh, this seems like just a day in the life story. And then in the middle, I'm like, no, no, it's not. This is not a day in the life. This is something completely different. So I just want to commend you on how well you wiggled in the world building and the science fiction into this story.
Well, thanks so much. It
Yeah,
warms my heart.
I
It
hope
means a lot
so.
to me. Yeah, yeah,
It's a great
yeah.
story. It's definitely extremely intriguing, and I'm excited for your published work. Hopefully coming
Hmm,
soon. You know.
yeah.
So,
So yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
I hope to.
sorry. What were you gonna say?
Well, I hope so too, and it's certainly a challenge these days. After 2 years of pandemic and all that, and working from home, which has changed a lot of things for me.
Yeah.
Time-wise, energy-wise, should have been the opposite, more time, but it's actually less time
Yeah.
for some reason I don't yet understand.
Hmm.
Um, uh, and also one of oh yeah I want to speak about that. I've been working with a developmental editor
Okay.
for the last 3 years, and it's been a blast and more challenging
Hmm.
as well because now my what I do is is getting challenged
Yeah.
in many ways. So it forced me to explore those many other things and ways of doing things.
Okay.
um, and it's connecting all that. Well, it's a challenge, and it's also an engine
Yeah.
in a way. Um, and I don't remember what my point actually was. I just
uh,
wanted to mention it.
Yeah, no, I would.
Very important to
So
me.
I think that's awesome because a lot of people they don't hire a developmental editor, or they don't
Mhm.
really hire editors for their books. They just do it themselves or go into Fiverr or whatnot. So how has a developmental editor helped push your story in hopefully the right directions?
Well, the first thing I realized was that, well, when I write, I think what I write is clear because I understand myself.
Hmm.
And when someone else reads it, And then I understand I forgot to explain this. I forgot to explain that. This isn't clear. This is implied, but no one else but me
Yeah.
knows it. So in that way, and, every week or every other week, I change my way of seeing how I write,
Yeah.
and it's very, very formative, I
Hmm.
guess. That's the first part, and then her name is Courtney. She proposes to me new books, new techniques, methodologies, and I try them all. And
Yeah.
each time it spawns new ideas, of course.
Dang.
For instance, while writing the first part of Act Two of the story this time, uh, around maybe 2/3 of the act, I had a new idea, and I wrote it this way because I loved the new idea a
Yeah.
lot, and it turned out to become the actual turning point of this part of the story. So now I'll have to rethink a little bit because this part has blown
Yeah.
twice
Man.
the length it should have been.
I
But
I get that, and sometimes I'm
uh,
scared to take a new idea and insert it in the middle
ah,
of my story because I'm like, well, then I'm gonna have to go back and change things. And but I
yes.
like that. I think
Uh-huh.
like takes a lot of patience to do it. So that's good that you're able to work with somebody and find ways to improve your writing. That's
Yeah,
fantastic.
and it can be overwhelming, of course, but
Yeah.
I'm learning ways to deal with that. So you just write a few notes and move on.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
walk toward the end, and we'll see when I go back. And you can't decide until you have the whole thing before your eyes.
Yeah.
Then hopefully, you can pace and adjust dosages of where to expose the world building and the backstory of the characters, and so on and so on. There's
Yeah.
so many things to incorporate into a story.
Authors have to do a lot of things, have to learn a lot of skills. And one of my questions for you is, your first language is French, but you've decided to focus your writing on English. So, what are some of the challenges of switching languages and writing in a second language?
Of course, there are many, but also many opportunities.
Yeah.
They come hand in hand. Challenges. Well, of course, it's not my first language, but I've been reading for the best
Mm.
part of last, I don't know, 35 years, and
Yeah.
watching all the American programs and movies, and always in English.
Mm.
Also living in Ontario for a few years,
Yeah.
um, but still, it's a challenge. I think English was the language that challenged me the most, um, speaking wise.
Yeah.
Enunciation wise. I learned, when I was a singer, I used to, study German and Italian, and those languages, like German can seem like it's hard, but it's really not hard to pronounce.
Yeah.
English is. English
Yes.
has so many exceptions. It's rich. It's crazy, but it's rich. So that's one challenge, is to talk.
Yeah.
But it would be a challenge if I did it in French as well.
Yeah.
Um, I can't resist talking about the main opportunity, though,
Yeah.
that I see. Because of course I write in French too, and I tried for years to write stories in French, a novel maybe, or poems and whatever. But someday I just tried my hand at English,
Yeah.
and there was something freer in me. I could think in a way that was freer, just for the fact that I haven't been raised in English.
Yeah.
So my teachers were French. My idols, the big writers, Victor
Hmm.
Hugo and so forth, and Henri Troya, those are écrivains.
Well, I
Writers
don't
at
know what
gut.
I don't know what you
Yeah.
mean, but I get what you mean.
If I had been raised in English,
Uh-huh.
I would think Hemingway, oh my God, I will
Yeah.
never measure up to that, you know?
Eh.
But I haven't. So in a way, and my parents and my family, my background, there was something more playful into going with English. So when I tried it, I couldn't not do it.
Yeah.
There's another aspect to it also.
Mhm.
On the internet, when you start looking up, books and websites about writing methodologies, the story grid, I don't know, you find so many great things. And in French, there are also, but less as many.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, also most of the authors I read in my life were American and
Yeah.
English, many French as well, but Ray Bradbury, you mentioned, Isaac Asimov,
Hmm.
Philip K. Dick, Philip Joseph Farmer, Neil Stevenson, Alastair Reynolds. There are so many great science fiction writers that I enjoy reading. So
Yeah.
it was all natural.
That's awesome. And I just want
Yeah.
to tell you how amazing it is. As somebody who has had to learn another language, it's extremely difficult. And so I think it's amazing that
Yeah.
you're not only
Yeah.
learning all these things, but also dedicating yourself to work in that field, because I've had to teach English to foreigners before, and it is extremely difficult to explain why we do certain things. And so I don't envy you at all for having to learn it. It's a great skill that you've been able to pick up.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Well, I must say we learn it in school,
Yeah.
elementary school here in Quebec, in the province
Okay.
of Quebec, and secondary school. We learn it from very young. So
Yeah.
it's the second language, but it's there.
Hmm.
Once you get to university, especially in sciences and physics, all the manuals
Hmm.
are pretty much in English you read.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I take the
It's,
the commanding you do, but
it's still difficult though.
it's so
Still really
natural. Yeah, it
difficult,
is.
even if
Mhm.
you've ingrained yourself in it. So, yeah. So one of my last questions for you, Nicolas Lemieux. I don't know if I said it right, but one of my last questions is, how does writing stories help us? Just people in general. How does it help?
Oh yes. It's the best question because I think it's the main thing about writing and reading, of course. Any story transforms us, really. I really deeply believe that.
Yeah.
Um, it teaches us, but it also, well, I mentioned the virtual reality, this kind of imaginative, better than any video game. You get to live many different lives. You're inside the skin of the characters and you experience what they experience. You live through situations that you will never really experience in real life,
Hmm.
and there's no there's no way of counting or telling how much it enriches your life,
Hmm.
and develops your empathy and general culture and your outlook on the world. It opens up your landscapes. I don't know if it's a way of putting it, but what you see of life becomes very much larger and wider.
Yeah. No, that's the perfect answer right
Mm.
there. It's empathy, opening your mind. Like, yeah, that's amazing. I think it's true because, like, especially with like first person stories, we're able to literally
Yeah.
get in the mind of those people, of those characters. And if the author artist has done their job, then it really is like being inside the mind of a different person. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
That's the
Nicholas,
goal.
yeah, that is the goal. And this has been fantastic. And I just
Yes.
wanted to thank you for coming on and sharing your different perspective and giving me a lot of awesome things to think about. So thank you so much.
Thanks. And let me say that the way you approach, your interviews and how you do it is fantastic.
Oh,
And I think it's an inspiration. And when I start my own, YouTube channel or podcast, I want to approach it the same way
oh,
that you do because it's great. It's awesome, really. So thank you for that.
of course. Yeah, I love talking to people. I love learning from them, and I think that there's so many amazing storytellers out there that they deserve their time in the spotlight, no matter how big or small they are. So
Yeah, and we have to help each other and
yeah,
elevate. Elevating other people will elevate you, that's for sure.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. I
yeah,
mean, I'm you know, half an hour or so ago, we didn't even know each other. We hadn't even seen each other. So it's amazing that you're all the way in Montreal and I'm over
yeah.
here in Idaho, and it's like we're able to connect in that way. It's so cool. It's so amazing. So,
It is. Yeah,
but what do you
mind
want to
blowing.
shout out? What do you want to tell the people about?
No, enjoy life, read a lot, go see my website, nicholaslemieux.xyz, of course,
Yeah.
plugging myself. And I'd like to interview you someday.
Oh,
I think it would be very interesting. I would have many questions to ask you.
of course, yeah. And check out his short story, Cradle. It is a quick read. It is a very interesting and well done book, short story, whatever it is. So, but check it out. All of his stuff will be in the description below. But yes, thank you everybody for watching, and we will see you next time. Bye bye.
Thank you, Colton. Bye bye.